Shalom, shalom, Israel's brothers. Abba, y'all would like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the men that's pushing this truth on the highways and byways at a mighty level, especially in these last days. That mighty men out there watching over themselves, watching over their spirits, and watching the prophecy. Shalom, shalom, the mighty sisters, the Aqua, those that are married and unmarried. Shalom, shalom, bearing the troubles of education if you have children, and the mighty children as well, abiding in their parents' household. Shalom, shalom. Right, this is going to be a cold cut on breaking bad habits, building better habits. Right, more practical, because it's not usually the sin that that overthrows you. You know, obviously we know the sin leads to death, but it's more so the route that gets you to go off. It's more so the route that gets you to sin, the streets, for lack of better terms, the way that you go that gets you to iniquity. Iniquity is the end destination, then comes death. But it's usually the path or the habits that you have that makes you go that way into sin. You know, and we have to break bad habits to build better habits. You know, we always say when we speaking or when we're teaching, we teaching ourselves as well, speaking to me too. You know, according to healthline.com, a habit can take 10 weeks to 2.5 months to break. Meaning if you change your habits, if you break that chain, if you break that pattern of you going off, because when you go off, there's usually a pattern that goes with it. You usually end up doing the same thing over and over again, which leads you to sin. Right? That's why when we go to Sirach chapter 37, you have to know you. You have to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you're always going to go off. This Sirach chapter 37:27, my son, prove thy soul in thy life, and see what is evil for it, and give not that unto it. For all things are not profitable for all men, neither have every soul pleasure in everything. Right, yeah, that brother, he can indulge in drinking wine, but when you indulge in drinking wine, you end up having certain thoughts and you go off. Right, and there's certain things that may lead up to you drinking wine, and you know you can't do that, right, like that brother. But there are certain things leading you to that, and then you end up going off every time. Now it's like a revolving door every day, and then you get down in the spirit, and then your mind starts to condemn you. Brother, if you know you can't be around, you know, certain meats and food because you start becoming covetousness and greedy, and you can't put a knife to thy throat, as it says in Proverbs 23:1, right, like that, brother, then, brother, you don't really need to be around all that food all the time. Maybe you need to pack it. Maybe you need to eat before the event. There are certain things, before you sin and before you commit iniquity, there are certain patterns that we do as men that allows us to get into iniquity, and that allows us to go off. You have to break those bad habits and build better habits. You have to break that pattern that Satan keeps like an everlasting loop, man. You can go to Romans chapter 6. You have to break that loop. This is Romans chapter 6 and verse 12. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that you shall obey it in the lust thereof. Neither yield your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. So when it says yield, you have to submit. Right now, your members are submitted unto sin. Your flesh is going to get addicted to things that are fleshly. It's going to get addicted to certain process and patterns that it loves, man. And you have to break that pattern. You have to actively start doing new habits. You have to force yourself and tell yourself in your mind every single day until it becomes second nature that you have to do this instead of doing this. Because it's second nature for you to go off and do certain patterns, which leads you into iniquity, and then you got your head down. But you're not actively thinking about other things and other routes and other things that you can be doing within that time that can lead you to not sin. See, you got to submit. You have to submit. Let me read that again. Verse 13. Neither yield your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God. You have to actively submit your members unto God. It's willingly not going to do it. Your flesh is willingly not going to submit itself unto God. Why? Let me go to Sirach chapter 16. It tells you why. Because every man from youth up, you were given to evil. This is Sirach chapter 16 and verse 17. Sirach chapter 17 and verse 16. Slakia. Every man from his youth is given to evil. Neither could they make themselves fleshly hearts for stony. Why do you think it's so easy to sin? Why do you think it's so easy to do evil? Why do you think it's so natural for kids to lie? Right? Natural for children just to do evil, man. And you have to teach them righteousness. It's not like they know righteousness. We have to teach them evil. No, you got to teach yourself righteousness, man. You got to teach your children righteousness. You got to teach other men and women righteousness. Why? Because you're given to evil. So your flesh is naturally inclined to find systems and find ways and patterns to go off and to commit iniquity. You have to catch that in the process and turn that pattern to righteousness. That's what you have to do. You have to break that pattern of bad habits. You have to say, okay, what do I struggle with? What do I deal with? All right, what leads me there? Okay, how do I usually get on that path to lead me to sin? What am I doing in the morning? What am I doing in the evening when I usually go off? Okay, I see I usually go off around 4 o'clock. What am I doing at 3:30 that leads into 4 o'clock me going off? You have to backtrack and start from the foundation of where you sin, man. It's not the sin that kills you, man. It does, but it's the process and the road and the steps you take to get to sin, which leads you to death. You have to stop that in the process. Let's go to Galatians 5:17. Like I said, your flesh is easily going to develop bad habits. You have to catch it in the midst. This is the book of Galatians. It's not the, like I said, it's the sin. It's the preparation to sin. This is Galatians 5:17. I'll start verse 16. This I say, then walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are the contrary the one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would. Yeah, like I said, your flesh will easily develop habits in the flesh. But what? You have to develop habits that lead to spiritual things. So if you usually do A, B, and C around a certain time, then you have to actively say, okay, I'm going to read. I'm going to purposely read on purpose right here at this time. I'm going to actively go over some precepts. Matter of fact, every day I leave the house, I'm going to have a stack of flashcards on me in my back pocket. You have to actively develop good habits that leads to spiritual, because your flesh is automatically going to lead to things that's evil. That's just how it is, man. But you have to actively think, okay, what am I going to do to lead to spiritual things? Because it's a war. It's a war. If you think you're going to secondhand just do righteousness, it hasn't worked so far. You have to plan. You have to plan righteousness. You have to plan spiritual things. This is war. You just don't go to war and hope you win. That's what some of us do. You go to war every day and hope you win, and then you find out you never win. You find out you're never in the spirit, because while Satan is planning different roads and avenues to get you to go off by a certain time so you can feel down in the spirit, and he's doing that every day, you're just going out there hoping you win the war. That's not how this thing is designed. This is a fight. So when you're fighting, you got a plan. You got to say, okay, if this is happening at this time, then guess what? When I wake up in the morning and I get certain thoughts in the morning, I got to break that pattern. I got to immediately go this way instead of that way this time, man. That's you actively denying sin. Denying sin is just not when you're in the midst of the temptation, you say, No. Denying sin actually starts from before. We used to say in basketball, hey, guess what? Game day not damn. Then we used to, in the world, play on Friday and Saturday. Game day not Friday. It's actually on Monday. It's Sunday. Because you have to plan you have to plan to win from the week before. That's how this fight is. You have to plan from before you dive into that iniquity, or before you dive into that temptation. Right? Let me go to 2 Ezra 13:54. And then what you'll find out is, now that's called ordering your life in wisdom. That's called seeing evil before it happens. Reason why you keep going off is because the temptation gets too damn hot. The temptation is so close to you. When you could have denied it back there, you want to deny it right here. It's in your face. Of course it's going to be hard to deny it. But it would have been easier if you denied it damn 3 days ago when you changed up those patterns, man. This 2 Ezra chapter 13 and verse number 54. For thou hast forsaken thine own way and applied thy diligence unto my law and sought it. You see that? So you have to forsake your own way. What does it mean to forsake your own way? The things that you naturally like to do, that you know is going to get you jammed up, you have to forsake that. It's not going to feel good. It's going to feel good after the fact when you don't commit iniquity, you deny sin. But in that moment of time, your flesh is going to tell you this doesn't feel good. Your flesh is going to tell you to stop. Your flesh is going to tell you, what are you doing? Why are you forsaking my way? Why are you forsaking the flesh's way to smoke weed? You smell that weed, and then you start walking, you go outside. Now, and all of a sudden, you just want to look at the trees. He said, Somebody must be doing something over there. You go over there trying to see what's going on. Hey guys, you never made conversations before. Now you want to make conversations. And now you start developing friendships with these people that smoke. That's your flesh, man. But a wise man, he's gonna put on an incense. A wise man, hey, guess what? Hey, he gonna put on some Febreze or something. All right, he gonna turn on the TV and turn on a damn camp video, turn it up. Hey, and burn the frankincense, man. He's not going to entertain that iniquity, man. It usually starts small and the iniquity usually grows. You have to kill it when it's still a seed because you don't want it to grow into sin. Right? Let me go to James chapter 1. You're trying to dodge the sin when it's already up close to you. You should have dodged it from times past. This is James chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 12. I'm going to start at verse 13. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. There it is. That's the seed. You're drawn away of your own lust and enticed. For you not to be enticed, you can't be drawn away of your own lust. For you not to be drawn away of your own lust, you have to break that pattern that even gets you there to lust. See, that's the part right there. You can't get to that road where you start to lust. Because when you start to lust, that's when the fight actually begins. And guess what? Verse 15, but then when lust have conceived, it bringeth forth sin. Because now when you're fighting that lust, you're going to usually end up losing. That's what's going to happen. You're going to end up losing. And then guess what? You start to sin. And then after that, and sin, when it is finished, it bringeth forth death. See, there's a process to this. You have to end that iniquity before it even begins to even try to tempt you. You have to see Satan long before he sees you, man. You got to start seeing things and say that could be a temptation. That could be an iniquity. Hey, that may not be off, but that can lead me down a road where now it's actually going off, man. That's why Paul said, for all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient, paraphrasing. You don't want to just be doing things because it's lawful. Because although it's lawful, it's not expedient, and now it leads you down a road where now you're going off. Now, like, for example, day drinking. It's 12:30, and you decide to pour you up some tequila. Well, it's not a sin. Well, yeah, but then you don't get anything done. You're missing all types of phone calls. Now you're hitting up women in the middle of the damn work day on a Wednesday, drinking tequila, and now your mind is just out of here, man. You have to dodge sin before it comes to get you. Let me go to Mark chapter 9. And guess what? Build better habits, and you have to break bad habits. Look at the habits that you have and see if those habits are conducive to this lifestyle and this truth. It's Mark chapter 9 and verse number 43. And if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than having two hands to go into hell, into the fire that should never be quenched. Right? So cut off the things that you do. Your hand represents the things that you do. So the Lord said, cut that thing off if that's making you go off, man. If that's making you do things you shouldn't be doing. You gotta cut it off. Cut off that habit, man. And use that right hand now to go over some precepts, go over some flashcards. Use that right hand to pick up your phone and call that brother or call that sister. And guess what? Now it'll be easier for you to not be tempted of that same old demon. And now you broke that bad habit. And now you'll find yourself not even being tempted like that with that spirit that you used to always be dealing with, man. Because it's that habit that leads you there. Verse 45. And if thy foot offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life than having two feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that should never be quenched. You're right. Your feet represents you into going into that will of sin, man. You willfully going into sin. Your feet making haste to go into sin, man. Into mischief. You read that in Proverbs the 6th chapter, verse 16 on down. Your feet is swift into running into mischief. Well, how about you turn your feet the other direction? If you know your feet, if you know that you can't go certain places because you know you're going to get enticed, then don't go that place, man. Although your flesh is going to say, no, well, damn, I really want to go and it doesn't feel right not going. That's your flesh speaking to you. Ignore it. You can't go that way. Your feet can lead you to sin. Verse 46, where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. And if thy eye offend thee, pluck it out. It is better for thee to enter into the kingdom of God with one eye than having two eyes to be cast into hellfire, where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. And guess what? The things that you see goes into your mind, which leads you to do these habits, man. You have to watch the things that you put into your mind. And it starts with your eyes, man. Don't look at certain things. Certain things walk past. Don't look behind you. Men, you know what I'm talking about. If you're looking at something you know you're not supposed to be looking at, now it's in your mind. Now all those are thoughts of uncleanness, fornication, adultery, lasciviousness all pile in your mind. And then you start finding your hand going into the actions. You start finding your feet following, going into the actions, man. Because your body's just only going to follow your mind. And how do things get into your mind? Based off the things that you see. So you have to cut off these things, right? Come up with a schedule. Come up with a schedule through the Spirit, man. Ask brothers, ask sisters, help you come up with something, right? To help you break that pattern, to develop a pattern break in the Spirit. Your day-to-day actions is what's leading you to do certain iniquities and certain sins that you're trying to get away from. But you have to change those day-to-day actions. It starts with literally every day. We go to Luke chapter 9. It starts with an everyday fight. That's just what it is. This is Luke chapter 9. And verse 23. That's why the Lord said this in Luke 9 and 23. And he said to them all, if any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. You got to deny yourself daily. Meaning you have to take different routes that you usually don't take, just to dodge iniquity, just to dodge sin. And also too, what comes with breaking habits and building better habits, you have to recognize your habits in the first place. A lot of people don't recognize their bad habits. A lot of people think what they're doing is okay, but they end up with the same result. Hey, they tell you in the world, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. If you're doing the same process to a T over and over again, you're going to get the same result, man. If there's nothing different in the process of what you're doing, you're going to get the same equation. You're going to get the same result every single time. You have to recognize bad habitual habits, man. You have to recognize bad habitual habits. And guess what? If you don't, you're going to be in an everlasting loop of sin till the Lord comes back. If you don't, man. It's you it's not somebody else that got to recognize it. It's you. Somebody can tell you something 1,000 times, but if you don't recognize it, you're not going to change anything because you're comfortable. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2 and 11. One thing you can't do in this truth, which is scary, you can't lie to yourself, because there's nobody's going to tell you the truth other than you. Yeah, brothers and sisters can let you know where you're going off at, but pride is going to kick in, because if you can't see where you're going off at, you're not going to be submissive or humble enough to accept the exhortation or accept the truth from other people. You can't lie to yourself. And guess what? If you lie to yourself, you're going to lie to yourself all the way into destruction, man. The Lord's not going to come down or send down an angel to tap you on the head and say, hey, you're going off. Stop doing these things and you can win, stupid head. The Lord's not going to do that. You have to do that. You have to really come to a consensus and say, you know what? Things that I'm doing, I'm going to die. And I need to take heed to what brothers and sisters is telling me. I got to break these bad habits, and it starts today. See, you're not going to break a bad habit 20 days from now if you don't start today. You can't get to day 19 without getting through day 1. You have to start today. After this video, write down the list of bad habits that lead you to sin, that lead you to the road of going off, that lead you to those thoughts. What leads you to those thoughts? Is it the drinking? Is it that person that you texting you're not supposed to be texting? Is it that one brother that you, every time you talk to him, he starts getting the worldly talk, and now you start thinking about things of the world and start thinking about money and cars and clothes and gold and jewelry, and next thing you know, you just spend hours on Amazon. Every time you talk to that person, you're always on Amazon right after for hours. Is it that person? Write down a list of things that cause you to go off, man. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 11. And for this cause, the Most High shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. And that's one of the scariest things. The Lord has you in a strong trance that you believe a lie all the way to your death, man. Verse 12. And it's going to tell you the reason. That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. And that's why you believe a lie, because you have so much pleasure in your iniquity. So much pleasure going down that road of sin. You love the setup, right? Slack you. You love the setup. You love the road down to that iniquity all the way until you finish that last sin. And then you want to feel bad. But you had pleasure the whole way. You had pleasure the whole route, the whole journey. They tell you in the world, it's not the destination, it's the journey where you learn. So on that journey to iniquity, you having fun. And now when it's time to tell yourself the truth that this whole thing is just off, even the way me getting to sin is off, then guess what? If you don't do that, you're going to believe a lie. You're going to believe a lie all the way to your death. You have to tell yourself the truth, because if you don't tell yourself the truth, nobody's going to tell you. Nobody's going to let you know. They can let you know, but you're not going to believe them because you don't even believe it. You're in a strong delusion. That's one of the scariest things. Pray to the Most High that you're not in a strong delusion. Pray to the Lord that you are always truthful with yourself. You telling everybody else the truth, but you can't tell you the truth. You tell everybody else about the law, statutes, commands of the Most High, but you going off. You can't tell you. You can't tell you no. You can't tell you stop. You can't tell you that you're going off. You can't rebuke yourself. Let's go to the book of Sirach 14 and 15. How can you do good as somebody else if you can't even rebuke yourself? This is Sirach chapter 14 and verse 5. He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods, man. If you evil to yourself, who are you going to be good to? How can you really tell the truth to everybody? You're a hypocrite. How can you tell the truth to everybody else, but you can't tell the truth to yourself? You can't sit there and have a grown man, a grown woman conversation with yourself and say, these habits are bad habits. My eating habits are bad. Let's say you overweight, you're trying to lose some pounds. Look, my eating habits are bad. I got to write out what I'm eating now, all right, and what I'm going to eat next, right, and what I'm going to change. Maybe I need to eat some more fruits. Oh, damn, I got arthritis. All right, let me look up some stuff. Let me look up some herbs. Okay, maybe I need some more turmeric. Maybe I need to add this in my daily life. You have to change up your daily life. You have to change up daily necessities to have an overall impact on your life. It starts with one day. One day turns into many days. But you can't change many days if you don't start with one day. And usually it's that sin that happens sometime throughout the day, or those thoughts that happen sometime throughout the day that you have to pinpoint and that you got to kill, man. Esau does this in war. He looks at the location, right? Let's say it's an airstrike. He looks at the location, then he narrows it down. He narrows it down again. He narrows it down again. And boom, that's that place that we want to attack. We want to attack that, because if we attack that, then we disrupt everything in the system. That's what you got to think about. If we attack this one point, guess what? It'll make a big impact throughout every day. So if I can win Monday, that means I can win Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Oh, here go the Sabbath. All right, that means if I can do certain things on the Sabbath, then guess what? It helps prepare for my week going into Sunday, and now we back to Monday again. You see how that works? You have to start with one day. One day turns into many days. Let's go to Sirach 10 and 9. Because if you lying to yourself, you're not being real to yourself, nobody's going to honor you. It's going to be hard to even be real with you. It's Sirach 10 and verse 29. Who will justify him that sinneth against his own soul? And who will honor him that dishonoreth his own life? Yeah, when you lie to yourself, you dishonor your life. You're an enemy to your own life. Tobit 12 and 15 told you that. When you sin, when you go off, you dishonor your own life. You hate yourself. You don't want to tell yourself the truth. You want to have so much pleasure in iniquity and unrighteousness that you refuse to tell yourself the truth, man. You're in denial. I know somebody that's in denial. I don't want to talk about slavery. I don't want to talk about that's bad. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this. That makes me feel a lot better. I know somebody said they would never teach their kids about slavery because they don't want them learning that. It's too bad. That's off. That's off, right? You have to learn. You got to learn. Still think about it. That's off. But in the context of you telling yourself the truth, you have to be real. You got to be like, look, I'm doing this. I'm going to die if I don't stop. The Lord is up there looking at me with hundreds of millions of angels watching me go off every day. I got to stop, man. You have to be real with yourself, because if not, nobody's going to honor you. Nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to say stop and drag you out the fire and making sure every day you're not in the fire. No. Everybody got their problems they got to deal with, right? We exhort each other, but it starts with you. You got to let you know what you're doing is off. Let me get one more. Let me go to Proverbs 22 and 3. That's going to give you a heightened sense of awareness. It's war. You have to have a heightened sense of awareness for the demons that come and try to attack you. It's tactical. Actually, let me get this, man. Proverbs 22 and 3. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 22 and verse 3. Once you start looking at every day as war, you will fare well. It says, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. If you don't take a look at your daily habits that lead you to sin, that lead you down the road to the iniquity, like I said, iniquity is the goal for Satan. He wants you to sin. But for him to get you to sin, he has to set up the sin in the process. He has to set up your footsteps to lead you to sin. That's why you have to pray to the Lord that he sets up your footsteps that lead you to righteousness, man. You have to foresee Satan, foresee evil before he sees you. With that, I'd like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Right, Lord willing, this was a helpful video, breaking bad habits, building new habits. And with that, I'd like to say, Kum Yashrala, Shalom.